Good morning, America. I've been reluctant to do a podcast lately because my head has been spinning thinking about the consequences of this war. I see things in terms of supply chains, resources, resource depletion, who's prepared for resource depletion. And I think we have perfect storm in Iran. Trump has not planned it, and he totally underestimated the Iranians. And I think it's going to be bad even if it ended right now, and I don't quite see how it can end right now. Because Iran only has to have one missile left, or we think they have one missile left to make it not impossible to go through the strait, but make people afraid to go through the strait. That's all that really has to happen for Iran to win is people have to be afraid to go through the Strait of Hormuz. Pardon me if I'm not saying that correctly. And we haven't felt the effect of the war yet. There's a lot of inventory in the world and it's spread around all over the place. But you've all heard this till you're sick of it that the Strait of Hormuz, is 21 miles wide and it keeps 20% of the energy and fertilizer and helium, etc., from going through. Well, when you're talking about resources, it doesn't take a very large shortage to really drive up the demand. Just a few percent shortage of something can drive up the the demand off the chart sometimes. Depends on how bad people need something. And the kind of things here that are going to be affected are things like water, diesel, fertilizer, energy, food. Now, Iran hasn't finished, I don't think, destroying um, the infrastructure. Oh, I left off liquid natural gas on that list. But if you look at, what kind of shortage hurts people, you'd have to put food and water right up there at the top. And Iran, locally in the Middle East, the thing they can impact the most is the water supply. A lot of the water in that part of the world comes from desalination, and you need a plant and you need energy. And Iran's destroying it most. So the people immediately in that area are going to be in a world of hurt if Iran takes out more um, the desalination plants. Now, really, the only hope that the Middle East has is not America; it's the Iranians, and if they can, um, they've got some new technology that they use drones to knock out drones, high speed drones that can only stay in the air a little bit because they're consuming a lot of energy and going fast. But they only stay in the air long enough to knock a slow flying drone with a bomb on it out of the air. So Ukraine has a chance of maybe not mitigating, but lessening the damage of Iran. But even if it all stops today, all of these impacts are going to multiply. Like when you knock out oil, you knock out diesel, and when you knock out diesel, you knock out farmers with farm equipment because you need diesel to pull the combines and the big equipment, or you drive that price up and make it not economical for the farmer. And anyway, you're going to hit the food supply. Places like India probably been hit worse, but be hit in America. And if it was just the impact of fertilizer and energy, um, then you might just say the poor places get hurt bad. But if you take the bottom third of Americans who were just barely getting by, and then you jack up the price of food and diesel and gasoline on them, they get in a world of hurt really fast, and they don't have a buffer. Now, there's another factor that you've got to play in there. You've got our debt, and our debt that we're not paying attention to, the debt that we don't think is important, the debt that we are unwilling to commit to pay. So, what they're going to do is print dollars to, we're not going to, nobody's going to, people aren't going to keep loaning us money. Japan, one of our big suppliers of cash for many decades, is having their own problems, and they're having to up their interest rate to keep their economy from collapsing, which is a new problem in Japan. So when we don't get other people investing in our treasuries, which is the same as investing in our dollars in our country, um, we're going to print more dollars, which is going to drive down the value of dollars. Now, at the same time, you're driving up the cost of energy and food and fertilizer and diesel. Those things don't just like happily add together, they multiply. We're going to cause a huge spike. We, Trump, and this war is going to cause a huge spike in wealth inequality. People that are already on the verge are suddenly going to be hit hard. It's not good, and I don't think we're quite grasping how bad it's going to be when you multiply these effects together. On top of that, the AI projects that are, they're pouring $500 billion into this year or some nonsense, um, they're going to collapse. First thing is the reality is that we don't have enough electricity to power these data centers. We don't have the manufacturing base to even get the gas transformers produced, to get the copper grid updated. And then on top of that, we're going to make all of that more expensive and the dollar less valuable. It's going to push down the weakest AI projects. OpenAI, even though they have the most customers, um, only survives on debt right now. each customer costs them more money. Their cost of providing AI exceeds the cost that people are willing to pay for it. They're trying real hard to get the military to sign up in place of Claude, who's made by Anthropic, which apparently has kind of got its nose out in front right now and being the best AI. So all of a sudden, you make electricity that's shorter, less available. You make energy less available, diesel less available. You have AI projects collapsing that are going to pull down the stock market. You want to add one more onto the pot? Saudi Arabia has said that they're going to start accepting other currencies, like China's currencies, for um, oil. So before, people needed our dollars so they could buy oil. But if that's not true anymore, they don't need our dollars. They don't need to invest in our treasuries. Couple that with our, printing money and our dollar going down in value, the demand being cut because people don't need uh, petrodollar, our dollar, to buy oil. And then people are thinking, well, China gets hurt because they don't have enough oil and they get a lot of it from Iran. But China has been preparing for this moment for decades. They produce 3x as much, they have the capacity to produce 3 times as much electricity as ours. Um, they have, they're building, plants, coal plants, all hundreds of them that can be used as backup power. Um, they actually have the ability to make transformers, and they control the copper supply and the battery supply and the wind mill supply and the solar supply. They basically control all the supply chains. So we're taking the supply chains that we have and we're making them worse. Um, it's probably going to put a little hurt on them. I mean, it's not, even though you have a lot of electricity, there's some things that you can't do with electricity that you can do with oil and natural gas and liquid natural gas. But they can allocate and prioritize the petroleum, the gas and oil that they do have to critical needs that can't be supplanted by electricity. And then they have plenty of other ways of making electricity. They've been preparing for this. They actually have a plan. We don't have a plan, and we are destroying and cutting back the energy that we do have. And we're really hurting our allies in Europe and Japan and South Korea. Um, and we're going to hurt ourselves too because it's a national oil market. Now, I guess we could pass some law that we can't export our oil if we really want to screw the rest of the world. But all these factors are happening at the same time. It's a perfect storm. And it's not going to end well. And it's going to hurt everybody, but it's going to hurt the poor people in this country. Um, Bad days are coming. And kind of right now, everybody's in magic thinking dreamland. Um, and who's the ancient Texan to listen to them? But I just see all these factors coming together. Uh, and I always, I used to run chemical plants and metallurgical plants, and you get one problem and you can kind of like You concentrate on that and work on it, and you don't get in too much trouble. But you have two or three problems, half a dozen problems hitting you at the same time. People aren't smart enough for that. And in our case, Taco doesn't really care what happens to anybody else. In fact, he's going to make out like a bandit. I'm sure he's well invested in oil before this whole thing started. Him and his buddies are going to make out like great. And his MAGA peoples are somehow going to spin this story that he's the hero. It's like you make the crisis and then you say you solved it, even if you don't. You leave the Strait of Hormuz for someone else to solve. Not Iran, Ukraine to solve it. It's a kind of insanity that happens as your resources and your credit and your dollars are all going south. It's a kind of crisis that happens. Um, Kind of the worst possible crisis here. We could make it even worse. Israel could use its nuclear weapons, and the chain that could start. I don't even want to. I feel bad just mentioning it, but it's not a good chain, and I'm not even going to go down that chain because the current chain that we've just started, chain of events, and the perfect storm that we've just created, um, is not going to end well. I feel sorry for my poor friends. I may feel sorry for myself pretty soon. But this is the ancient Texan afraid of the what's that this war could actually collapse the US. And exactly how, I don't know. But I know if you put the world of hurt on a third of your population, um, those people are going to become desperate, coupled with a lot of desperate people around the world as this thing, all these pieces interact with each other in this perfect storm. And it's not going to be well. How long? Things like this take longer to unfold than you think, but a month before the walls fall in. Anyway, this is the ancient Texan hoping I'm wrong and I don't know what I'm talking about. Because that would be the best possible outcome, that we're not in a perfect storm, that my vision is cloudy and I don't know what the hell I'm talking about. That would be the very best thing to happen right now. Have a good one. Namaste.